you happy with how the plow out process is going overall?
Overall, no, I'm not happy with it.
This guy's got a Boston. Oh shit!
How the fuck are we supposed to move that snow out of the driveway now?
Are you happy with how the plow out process is going overall?
Overall, no, I'm not happy with it.
Okay, folks, thank you for joining us live at our town hall here we're hosting on the snow plowing situation that's faced Anchorage since last week, November 8th. We're joined here. We invited a lot of folks, and I'm very happy to be joined by Mayor Dave Bronson, Dan Volan for the Assembly, Forrest Dunbar from the Legislature, and Felix Rivera from the Assembly. We invited DOT folks as well, but they turned us down their invite. We're here to talk about the snow plowing situation that we've seen here in November that we saw last December when it came to the roads, the city roads, the state roads, school closures. This time it was a state of emergency declared by the mayor, impacts on businesses, and how come we're here, and what's being done and what's not being done when it comes to money, salaries for workers for the city and the state, equipment. We've just seen a lot of this kind of repeat over this month from last December. We went back and checked. There was DOT subcommittee hearings in the legislature where they brought this up, and money. There was meetings in the Anchorage Assembly last November on this topic. And, you know, for folks who have lived here a long time, I've been here 20 years. I've heard from people that have been here for 30 and 40 years. You know, we haven't seen this kind of thing before. It was a lot of snow, but we've had this kind of snow before. This isn't on record snowfall. We've had storms this size. So we're going to talk about that. We've also invited folks from the public to come either in person or on Zoom. If you're watching, we're going to post the Zoom link in the comments. Also, you can go to our website, alaskalandmine.com, and you can click on the first article, and we have the link to Zoom. You can click on the meeting, or you can just type in the meeting number and code, and we can get you there on Zoom. And like I said, we've invited DOT as well, but they didn't get back to us. So first, I just want to start with maybe the mayor here. It's your going into your third year that you're up in election in April. What's going on? I know there was some issues with the city and state. You guys covered some of the state roads briefly, but then the city roads didn't get plowed. I mean, is it, you know, wages are a factor. I know the starting wages at the city and the state are both pretty low compared to the private sector. The airport did a 30% raise because they knew. I mean, they knew this was coming. So why are we here again after what happened last December?
We're here because in your opener you said, well, we get storms like this a lot. No, we're not in these three storms. We got 1/2 of an average year snowfall in 3 storms on the 5th, the 10th, and the 12th. So the volume of snow and the fact that it was very wet actually makes a difference. It's kind of physics. Wet snow is much more difficult to move than dry snow. We had hoped with the cooling down we could then scrape the roads a lot better and move dry snow, scraped ice, and that was difficult. So I guess your assertion that we get storms like this all the time, I was looking back to Mayor Berkowitz, I think in 2017 when we got held ransom for we could do police or snow plowing, and he was upset about a 1-foot snowfall, and that triggered that debate.
Well, it is all the time, but there's been storms where it snowed 24, inches or 30 inches in the past. And part of this, we went back and checked the budget in 2015 on the state level when the price of oil started to go down. They started cutting the budgets.
Well, that's a state issue, and that was long before I'm here. That may or may not have precipitated us having to coordinate with the state to help out on the major thoroughfares in the city that the state owned. We coordinated very well with them.
I want to pull up a quick clip here, Scott. If you can pull up the clip of the DOT subcommittee meeting in March, and I want to pull this up. You're on this committee, Forrest, as well as Senator Wielkowski, Senator Bishop, and Senator Stedman. And there was a discussion. This is on the state roads, and I want to talk a little bit about the difference in the state and the city and kind of the issues that cause with the public. But Scott, if you can pull up the DOT subcommittee meeting from March of this last March. We're gonna watch this real quick.
Do you have the proper funds requested in your budget to respond to another snow event like this if it happens to repeat next winter?
Mr. Chairman, resource levels are certainly set by policymakers, and DOT responds to the service level that the policymakers set. And on this, these are, again, aspirational, meaning we attempt to get to this. If an extraordinary event like the December one rolls through again, I think in general we were told we were not being as responsive as the public would like. But again, we tried to illustrate on the previous slide the extraordinary nature of that one event and the question.
Let me rephrase the question. We are the policy
Correct.
group, right?
There's Bert.
You guys clear the snow. We appropriate the money so you can clear the snow. The question is, do you have the resources available to respond to a similar incident? Or what size of incident, less than that, can you respond to before you have a budgetary issue that needs to be brought to the committee?
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That question is partially answered with the Extreme Weather Event Fund does help, but in this case, we tried something in Fairbanks we actually found, the commissioner I think has found to be quite helpful in contracted services that assist with some of the lower priority roads. I've heard a lot less issues this year with that, and I think that's something we're going to look at in other jurisdictions. So as far as resourcing on that, I think the commissioner's looking at where we can make improvements. And then again, on a future slide, we're going to examine some things this year that we hope will also get to the pedestrian facilities, which we know are a significant concern for some folks.
So we can look at your budget requests and decide if we want to add additional funds to it to deal with emergency responses like this. And if the funds aren't used, we can just roll it forward to the.
I think we can stop here.
budget,
That's good
which will be
enough.
FY25.
So again, that was the Department of Transportation Senate Subcommittee, which Senator Dunbar is on. And, you know, this was in March. This was 3 months after what happened in last December. And I went to the DOT facility last week and talked to those guys. And, you know, a big factor is the wages. It's starting at $25 an hour. I talked to a guy that his buddy wanted to come work there from the slope, didn't want to work on the slope anymore. He said he's like getting paid 40 or offered 40 or 45. What did the state not do here when this was obviously a topic in the subcommittee? And the House subcommittee as well talked about the same topic.
And thank you, Jeff, and thank you for playing that clip. There's another, just before that clip, there's another clip of me in that finance subcommittee trying to add money and trying to press DOT in a similar way. Eventually, Senator Wilkowski and I got about $500,000 added sort of over the objections of DOT. Now, I want to be really clear about something. When we're talking about snow removal, it's not about the people on the line. The operators, the folks that are running our apparatuses, even sort of their management level, they understand, I believe, the kind of challenges that we are facing, and they do tremendous work. There's another clip that I hope you get to play at some point from November of 2022 that is sort of a similar clip to that one, but at the city level, where myself and Austin Quinn Davidson and our colleagues were trying to add $1 million to the snow removal budget. And when you have people like that DOT employee, or in that other clip, you'll have Paul Van Landingham, the head of the municipal municipal snow plowing, they're really uncomfortable when they're giving this answer to us. And you've got to ask, why can't they just ask for more money? Why don't they want more money? And the reason is because our elected executive leadership, Mike Dunleavy and Dave Bronson, are pushing them to keep costs low. And so they are not comfortable asking for that money. And so in both the finance subcommittee at the state level and on the assembly, we have given these agencies more money in spite of the fact that they're not asking for it, because our elected leaders, Mike Dunleavy and Dave Bronson, have not taken this problem seriously enough and have not asked to expand those services in the way that we need them to.
Let's go to Mayor Bronson and I'll let you respond on that with
Well,
the city level.
First, and I'll stick with the city because the state is not my venue. So we did a little research on Senator Dunbar's post about adding $500,000. It was quite clear, and the quote from AQD at the time was quite clear. That was $500,000 for sidewalk plowing. I don't think we're talking about that right now. So the other thing is, Mr. Dunbar, or Senator Dunbar, I should say, has been on the assembly since 2016, and where was he on all this in 2017 when he was here? Mayor Berkowitz cut 6 positions from sidewalk plowing, 6 seasonal temps. And that's critical because we flex up in the winter, and there's a skill set there that we try to capture every year. So at the end of the year, I've been here, at the end of the day, I've been here 2.5 years. First winter I was here, we had a very light snowfall. The second winter, December of last year, I think, again, to your issue that we get this all the time, they called it extreme and extraordinary snowstorm, the state did. in
Scott,
reference.
Scott, if you want to pull up the DOT slide, they talk about the storm amount. And
Right.
We can pull that up. And it was a lot of
So
snow.
at the
I
end
mean,
of
I'm
the
not
day,
saying
but
it
the
wasn't.
notion that we get this all the time, I'm coming back to your first remark, Jeff, that just demonstrably untrue. And I think your testimony here from the state committee meeting, subcommittee meeting there was quite clear. At the end of the day, where was everybody here, not you, Doc, where was everybody here in the assembly over the last several years trying to buy equipment and trying to buy and hire people?
Here's a slide
I didn't see it. There's no record of that.
Here's a slide. This is from the DOT, the meeting you were at there, the subcommittee. And
Right.
It talks about the amount of snowstorms, December 6th, 7th, 11th, 12th, 14th, 15th, 3 to 5 feet. I didn't say it was common to have that amount of snow over that period of time, but we've had big storms where it snowed, 12 or 24 or 30 inches. And my recollection in the past, those got cleaned up pretty well. I mean, in December we saw a lot of the roads, and it wasn't just city, it was state too. The roads basically were blocked, half blocked until the spring. Boniface, Tudor, Northern Lights, which creates, I'll go to you, Daniel. I mean, there's safety issues, and then
Yeah.
I noticed some of the state will plow the road after the sidewalks get plowed.
Right.
And they get covered up. So, maybe there should be some more
By the
coordination.
way, you mentioned all those streets you just mentioned were state roads.
Right.
So I
it's
think-
a multi-issue problem. It's both.
I think there's 5 major challenges to snow removal in Anchorage right now. I will say on this point, I did bring a receipt because I wanted the record to be very clear.
You have a lot of papers there.
When it came to the extra funding that the Anchorage Assembly passed, it was $1.5 million additional over the mayor's proposal. And I will say,
Some of that came in the spring, though.
No, the
was a
1.5 was in
initially?
November. Nope. So here's what happened. We had our Assembly budget work session, and then Assembly Member Dunbar, now Senator Dunbar, and our former colleague, Assembly Member Quinn Davidson, brought forward an amendment proposal to increase the budget for snow removal by $500,000.
Yeah.
In that budget work session, a lot of us said, well, what about sidewalks? So to the mayor's point, we decided then to increase it to $1 million so we could have better snow removal from both streets and sidewalks. Because what you're saying is true. We have the safety issues where people can't use the non-motorized infrastructure, so they end up in the road, right? And that's wheelchair users included. So it makes it more dangerous for every user group, for vehicle drivers, for pedestrians, etc. So there was our $1 million additional funding proposal. We got to the dais that night at our regular meeting. And the way that assembly meetings work is you really want to make all the sausage in advance, especially when it comes to the budget. So that's the committee meetings, that's the work sessions. We want to be prepared. But we got to the regular meeting and we were able to hear from Paul Van Landingham. And he said,
Head of the street operation.
Head of street maintenance, and he said, you know what, even $1 million will just allow us to maintain a current level of service because of some of the challenges that we're facing with understaffing, with equipment that needs repair. So at that November meeting, we decided, and I have it here in our assembly ordinance and in the line item, that we decided to increase total $1.5 million above the mayor's proposal. $500,000 of that was specifically flagged for sidewalks. Because of the dangerous situations that lack of maintenance to our infrastructure, our non-motorized infrastructure creates. I won't go through all my challenges here because I know we really want to have a dialogue about this, but I do want to say to the mayor's point about DOT facilities. One of the big challenges I think Anchorage is facing is that Alaska DOT continues to have an emphasis, a focus on capital projects rather than maintenance. And a lot of times when I hear from constituents, the challenges that they're facing is on DOT facilities. And when the municipality is having to step up and maintain those facilities, am I holding this?
I think your mic's got an issue.
Oh,
so-
can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
When the municipality has to maintain DOT facilities, that is problematic because that means that our operators can't get to the neighborhoods.
Well, I guess I'm going to go to Felix in a second, but Mayor, I want to go to you. What was the decision to use some of the city? Because the state, I found, only has 8 graders, and only 5 or 6 are currently operational. So the city has many, many more. I think 30. So what was the decision did they ask you, or how'd that come about where you started using some of the city equipment to do the state roads, which weren't being done?
Well, I spoke at length with the state governor's staff, state DOT, and it became apparent that Thursday and Friday, because of the wet snow and then the freezing of the wet snow after driving on it, was going to create a real problem. The concern was is we weren't, for a matter of public safety, we weren't going to get the ambulance, the fire trucks, the police cars down the thoroughfares that were controlled by the state. So I went to them actually, and I says, hey, can I have your permission to plow your streets? And we worked out an arrangement where we could do that. And then Paul took over, and his opposite number at the state took over, and they built the schedule. So we didn't have two conflicting folks on the same, from DOT and from MOA, plowing the same area at the same time. And that worked out really well. Unfortunately, we did have to pull some assets being graders, out of neighborhoods because we had started our plan. We had completed our roads by noon after the first two snowfalls. We had completed our major thoroughfares by noon on Friday. And then, so that means then we complete the plan, and we were on Plan A at the time, which is east to west, and we had to pull some assets, not all of them, out to help out with the state. We did that. We were happy to do that because even our snowplow drivers were saying they were struggling to get to their routes because they were having to go down some of the state-maintained roads. And I'm not here to throw the state under the bus. This is what you got to understand. This is an extraordinary, they said it, you've said it, extraordinary snowfall. It was extremely wet. I've been here 32 or 33 years. This was a big snowfall. Paul Van Lanningham, who is the expert, he's been here 27 years, and he said last week was the worst he's ever seen. So I give my directors what they want. If he wants more money, I give him more money. The issue I have with the budgetary thing here is I noticed, Doc, I was cheating here. Reminds me of elementary school. I was looking at your papers here, and that I think was October of 2022. And the budgeting process, when you do the budgeting process, it's for the next year. I just added $1 million, $1.5 million to the snowplow budget. That's for 2024. This budget wouldn't have done anything for last year's snowfall because it happened in December in the same fiscal year. Okay, so what they were adding for was 2023.
But there's amendments to the budget.
Well, and the other thing, if we're short on it, there's
ways
a
to add
couple
more money
things.
to the
If
budget.
you believe we're short on equipment, short or fat on equipment or people is dependent upon your plan. Okay, you have to have a plan because otherwise you're not comparing it to anything. Can we get our roads done as prescribed in 84 hours after we start the neighborhoods? That's the plan. We were adequately staffed, and we had the adequate equipment. If more equipment was needed last year or for this year, there's a year to 2 year lead time on buying.
Absolutely,
graders. On the 140s, the 120s, the 140s, 160s, depends on which model we buy. There's a lag time. So this notion that you can just sit here in October, November, and even December and throw money at something and think you're going to fix something is nonsensical.
Well, my point of going back to last...
Because we can't buy the graders in that short, and it's difficult to hire the employees in that amount of time because a grader driver is, and this is, everyone needs to know this, that's a highly skilled position. We don't hire people with CDLs from that are driving trucks or driving anything.
Why hasn't the city raised... The airport raised wages. They did a 30% increase because the airport, and I talked to Mike Campbell, he knew they can't.
Last winter, I directed our new HR director to do a coordinated salary study with the state, so we would coordinate, so we wouldn't have this whipsaw going in back and forth. We've lost a lot of accountants to the state. We've lost a lot of snowplow drivers to Ted Stevens International. It's across the board because in one fell swoop, they come in and add anywhere from 20 to 30% pay increase for the exact same job. It's tough to retain in that environment.
Let me go to you, Felix. You were in the assembly. I think your third term, right, or third term. So you've been on for a while. You were chair for a while. Mm-hmm. I'm curious your opinion on all of this. Wages I think is an issue. Equipment, and he's right. I mean, it does take a year or more to order some of this equipment. So it seems to me, in March, at least on the state level, if they were serious, they would have started putting these orders. And on the city level, we know this is an issue. So I'm curious. You're coming to the assembly. What do you think?
Yeah, so three things. The assembly has been serious about this, right? We appropriated, as Daniel said, $1.5 million in a budget amendment. In the spring, we added more money. On Tuesday, we're going to look at adding even more money. So the assembly is 100% serious. But, when the mayor says, I added $1.5 million to the snowplow budget, that's a farce, right? The assembly added $1.5 million. The mayor took away that one time, so it's really just a $500,000 increase. That's all that
What
the
did I
mayor
take
added.
away?
You took out the $1.5 million increase that we added to the budget. You took it out. You reversed it, and then you
I
added your
added
money.
1.5 to the snow plowing budget. It's
No, it was
that
only
simple.
500,000. It's only 500,000, Mr. Mayor. And you know, the mayor has used terms like everything is fine, everything is adequate. If you ask any of my mayors, any of my constituents, they would be laughing right now, right? And the fact that we have this level of coordination between DOT and the MOA, and there was nothing wrong with that. I saw many times that the sidewalks plowed, DOT came by, and sidewalks full of snow again. So that level of coordination did not happen. And then the last thing I'll say, and the mayor keeps talking about this, is, oh, this was a historic snowfall. Last year, we talked about this is going to be the new normal. We need to be ready for this. Climate change is here. It's a real thing. It's impacting our weather patterns, and we need to be ready for it. And look, here we are again, a year later, and we are not ready for it. So this is the new normal, and we need to be prepared. And frankly, I think it's an abject failure of the mayor's leadership to not have us prepared for this winter.
Well, I'll go back to you, Mayor. I mean, I know for private sector as well, it's a real challenge to find people right now. So it seems like something needs to be done with pay, incentives, vacation. I don't know what it is to get people to be able to
again,
do
I
these
mentioned, you're
jobs.
right, pay. I just gave the police department the largest pay increase for the same reason, retention and recruitment, in the history of the municipality. I'm a fiscal conservative, but I saw the need. I did that. We are in the middle of a coordinated pay study, not in the middle, we are beginning a coordinated pay study, and we've been working on it for nearly 8 months with the state, so we don't get this whipsaw going. We met yesterday about compensation package for the lieutenants and captains at both the APD and then of course at AFD, because they pretty much need to be parallel. We have, and that addresses the pay issue, the disparity, where we have supervisors making $20,000 to $30,000 or less than the people that they supervise. That's a done deal. We're doing that. And when it comes to the snowplow drivers, we're not getting the quality that we need or that we would like. And it's not the quality of the individual, it's the experience level. We would like to hire greater drivers with experience. I know we got one from Fairbanks last year. That was a real win for us. I talked to the guy. But at the end of the day, you can't snap your fingers and throw money at stuff. You know, Felix, all right, this is the new norm. You've been here 6 or 7 years. Did this new norm just spring on you, or is this just politics? Because last December we also had some big snow. Because all I remember, the last big snow, and I've been here a while, was the 2011, 2012. You've been here 3 times longer than I have. What have you done? You've done nothing. And all of a sudden now, when it's politically advantageous for you to do that, you go after the governor, you go after me. We plan, we finance, and we budget, and we plan based on the needs and the requests of the directors. I mean, have you been talking to Paul Van Landingham for the last 5 years and asking him what he needs? I mean, I can ask him. He's texting me right now.
In fact, I have been talking to.
We'd love to have him come on the show if he wants to come on Zoom. Or?
No, Paul's out plowing streets. He might even be watching. But at the end of the day, this is how it works at executive level of government. Your directors ask you for something, and you make the decision whether or not to provide them with.
Let me go to Felix real quick to answer that. We'll go to Forrest. So we're going to take a break. But I'll go to Felix first and let Forrest finish for the break.
Absolutely. So I have been talking to Paul Van Landingham for the last 5 years, and I have been talking to him about what can we do specifically to increase plowing for sidewalks. That's been my big thing. As a big public transit user in the past, that's a huge issue for me. And Paul said, well, we have a lot of work to do if we want to improve sidewalks. There's a lot of coordination to happen. So guess what? We've been pushing that. We've been pushing that kind of coordination.
Did you get any results in all that pushing? Because this is the real challenge in life, is that on state roads they plow, by and large, Ingra's, your section that we're trying to work on with AMATs here, is Ingra's a big problem.
Yeah.
Sure. Because the sidewalk and the street are so,
you come by and they plow snow from the state street into the state sidewalk. We don't plow state sidewalks. You know, maybe I could if we hadn't got rid of the 6 seasonal snowplow sidewalk drivers here several years ago in 2017.
Well,
but
Mr.
we
Mayor,
don't. And
you've
this
been
is the
mayor
other.
for what, 2 years? How come you haven't brought those positions back? If you want to keep complaining about it, you have that authority and that power.
All positions are fully funded. We hired 6 this week. So
we saw
This week, wonderful.
Yeah,
and
they go.
great to have
we
them
can pull up
at
the
the
vacancy
entry
list.
level.
There's I think 25%, according to the budget document we have, the vacancy rate within the street maintenance. So
Jeff,
Right.
so can I jump in here for a little bit? And I apologize, I have to leave in a little while.
Right, no, I know. We'll take a break in a
There's
second.
a veteran suicide event that a prevention event that I want to get to as well. But you know, there's a lot to say here. But it really boils down to you have to have executive leadership and people willing to take responsibility. You're right, Mayor. Felix has been here 3 times as long as you. He's going to be here 3 times as long as you ever will be, because the work we do now is going to be for the next
Well, he's
mayor.
termed out, I think. So
Felix is termed out.
break, but-
There's going to be a new mayor next year, partly because of this. And the people of Anchorage are furious about this. And if it really was the state that was the problem, you should have been standing on a table yelling at Mike Dunleavy to get more resources for us. And when I was down in Juneau, we didn't hear a peep from you on that. You know, and it has been the state problem for a while. But we know that the operating engineers came to you last summer and said, this is happening with the airport, you're going to have to increase wages, and you didn't listen to them, you didn't do it, and so they ate our lunch. And so we got hammered last winter, and you said you fixed it, we got hammered again this winter. You know, it's like, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on us. There's not going to be a third time for the people of Anchorage to get fooled, because there's going to be a new mayor coming next year.
We're going to take a quick break. I want to give Mayor, I want to give you the last word on this.
Well, Senator, you've been in the state a long time. You know what snow looks like, or at least you're supposed to know what snow looks like. At the end of the day, in fact, since Paul isn't here, let me just read what he sent me a minute ago.
Throw it on the big screen if you want.
I don't know how to. Okay, so this is what Paul said just a couple minutes ago. Every plow sector under these conditions is taking my most veteran operators more than twice as long to plow a sector as it normally would. That's from the expert that we're all citing here. It's take twice as long because we got really wet snow and it piled up and then it froze hard.
Can I ask one question?
We're going to go to break. If you can, real quick, Scott, pull up the clip of November 2022 Anchorage Assembly. I want to play this clip, and then we're going to take a break, because this does speak to this topic we've been discussing for the last several minutes. So if you can pull up the November 2022 Assembly clip, and Paul Van Landingham is actually talking on this topic. So let's play that clip.
Does that mean the administration's initial budget was a cut?
It's not on. Mr. Yeah, would you leave the mic on?
I mean, if we're just getting back to even, that means that effectively the administration cut snow hauling for this coming year if this amendment doesn't pass.
Through the chair, no funding was cut from our snow hauling budget.
Right, but you just said that there's this huge increase in costs, so this additional $1 million will just get you back to even. So that means that if we don't pass this, then we've effectively cut the services for snow hauling from last year.
That is correct.
Okay. Well, I don't think we should cut snow hauling.
We can stop there. But I mean, that's Paul Van Landingham, and I'll be fair. I mean, this is a problem all over the country. You know, there's a shortage of workers, and there's a staffing issue, and there's obviously that gets solved with wages. I mean, that's really the only way to solve it. So I guess my last question before the break is what happens if what if we see these kind of storms again next month, like last December? I mean, is it going to be, you know, the schools were shut down for last year, December 10 days. This year it was remote, I guess, but it was a week. And I mean, the amount of parents I heard from, I'm not a parent, but I heard from a lot of them. I'm sure you did too.
We heard a lot, and my remarks that you kept playing is that, am I unhappy with how things are going? I was terribly unhappy because I got a lot of constituents, about 290,000 of them, that are very unhappy. But at the end of the day, you measure success based on the plan that you financed, that you budgeted for. And there's only 2 people at this table that weren't involved in that process, and it's you and the doc. So that's what we got to remember. If you can magically forecast, Felix, that that all of a sudden we're in another great big weather change. Remember, we had 2011, 2012, we had that winter we had a big snowfall, really big snowfall. And then guess what? The politicians got hammered because they added a lot of money to the operating budget for snowplow. And then we had 5 or 6 or more years of winters where my wife was praying for snow just for Christmas. So now in a world, I've got to look at people who've got to pay property taxes that got to pay for this. There's a balance here. And if we're out of balance right now in snow removal, because those comments with snow hauling, we're in the plowing mode and we're just beginning snow plowing. That's a completely different phase. The snow hauling is going to go for 6 to 8 weeks.
To this since
We're going to go to a break after this because we do have to do a quick break.
So, Mr. Mayor, you said we got to pay for this. Guess what? The community is paying for this right now. Kids aren't going to school. Businesses are suffering. People's personal finances are suffering because their cars are getting broken on the roads. Right? So people are already paying for this one way or another. We can either adequately fund snow plowing or pay for it on the other end.
Well, and you had 6 years to do that. You didn't. And all of a sudden, magically, you're a weather forecaster and you're saying all the rest of the winters are going to be heavy snowfalls. You don't know that. I don't know that. Some people are saying La Nina to El Nino shift that we're in the middle of right now is making the difference. But at the end of the day, this is what people need to remember, Jeff, is we have 3 levels of snow plowing. We have basically our 302 operators. That's the equipment that we own and the people that we hired. And then we have term contracts, and everyone here knows what those are, but the public doesn't, and that is we have contracts that are sitting. When we need you, we want you to provide plows, trucks, side dumps, whatever. And then we have emergency contracts. And we executed all of those contracts almost immediately. Our term contractors were executed, I believe, Thursday or Wednesday. Okay, our emergency contracts were executed in sequence because we don't execute on a contract for side dumps because we don't need them. They haul snow. The snow hauling is going to go for 6 to 8 weeks from now. So we're not done. We're not done with this. The emergency is over. But we haven't even begun the major snow hauling. And the number to remember is this, Jeff, is this. In a normal year, we haul 6,000 dump truck loads of snow to our snow dumps. In that 3 days, those 3 days of storms, we've hauled 3,000. In one storm, we hired half a year of snow. Okay, so the notion that this is somehow just an average high kind of storm is nonsensical.
Well, you've said several times
denies reality.
You've said several times we have to be always prepared for the average amount of snow. But doesn't that mean half the time we won't be ready? Shouldn't it be
and then
more than
then we
average,
bring in our term contractors, and if that doesn't work like it didn't last week, we bring in our emergency contracts. We did all of that.
Well, I want to go to, I know, Daniel, you got some, we'll get you after the break. I want to go to a quick break. We're going to hear from members of the public. We have people in studio. We have people on Zoom we're going to hear from, and we want to hear from you. Tell us how this has impacted you and your family and your job and your kids and all these things. So we're going to take a quick break. I want to thank Mayor Bronson, Dan Volin from the Assembly, Senator Dunbar, and then Felix Rivera from the Assembly for being here. We're going to come back, take a quick break, and thanks to our team of great people here that are helping us out with the Scott, Trent, Peter, Carolyn, doing the live stream. We'll be right back. No, I'm good, thank you. Okay, folks, we're back. I want to thank Mayor Bronson for being here, Assemblymember Dan Volan. We have a lot of folks in the room. We're going to go to Zoom. Again, this is on the kind of snow plowing situation that's faced Anchorage since last week, November 8th, and continuing on kind of what happened last December and talking about what the city and state can do to better address snow. We have a lot of folks in the room here, and then we're going to go to, I think, Eric on Zoom. Can you hear us, Eric? Can Eric hear us? It looks like he's hello, Eric. Are we having an issue with Eric's sound? May have to come back to Eric if we don't. Eric, hello. I think we're going to have to come back to what?
He doesn't hear you.
Are we here?
There he is. Okay. Eric, tell us your name and where you live, and kind of want to hear from you about the snow plowing situation and how long you've lived in Anchorage for.
My name is Eric Anderson. I live in Palmer now. I was living in Anchorage from 98 to 2010. I was a commuter for about 9 years, and then I finally got a job halfway between here and the valley. So I got a couple comments, and I hear people saying we need to pay the guys more. They need to make more money. There's not enough in the budget, or maybe there was money. Here's what it comes down to. People that get into public service should get into the job for the sense of benefits and the sense of security. If you're getting into a job because it pays more than a guy working 84 hours at a mine, then that's the wrong government job that we need to have. We don't need guys that make 160 grand for 6 months moving snow, and then they go make another 100 grand putting guardrails in or something for the DOT. Government is not a lucrative business. Government is public service. And when I drive the Glen Highway and I see the sidewalks on both sides of the streets are plowed from Anchorage all the way to the Highland Road, but the streets haven't been serviced, that's an issue. And then it comes back to my other thing is the economic impact, which I think Jeff was on last time and commented about it on radio. The economic impact when one term of commuters is late 1 hour is about $4 million. So when you think that 40,000 commuters are late for 1 hour, and you put just an average of $100 worth of lost revenue cost for the employee with fringe benefits, it's about a $4 million hit. So when you do that financially, mathematic calculation over 4 or 5 days, or even lost revenue for businesses, I mean, we got to look at snow as money falling from the sky. I used to be a snowplow operator and have contracts, and I looked at it as money falling from the sky. If the government did the same thing, as look at it as lost money falling from the sky, we need to get this stuff cleared as fast as possible.
I want to say that I haven't heard anybody recommend $160,000. I think they should get paid more. But you make a good point. I think in the past, if you go back 20 or 30 years, there used to be a trade-off where, yes, you did make a little bit less money working for the government, but there was, a pension. And I know the laborers or the union guys have a pension for the city, but on the state level, there's basically a 401k plan. So if you can make $25 an hour at the state or 30, but you can go make 40 or 45 or 50 in the private sector, I mean, most people are going to, if there's no pension trade-off, I would say most people are going to make more money, right?
Well, I'm not saying that person isn't entitled to make more money. The thing is where's the money coming from? It's coming from the taxpayers. So when the taxpayers are footing the bill for a guy working, if they got to work 7/12s to get caught up, that's 44 hours a week overtime. And when you look at the step pays from the Muni and the DOT, we're looking at $34 an hour up to $56, $60 an hour for the supervisors. And I guarantee you the supervisors are working some overtime, but they're not working overtime like the guys in the machines, just for that reason, because they got to supervise 24/7. That's a 44 hours a week overtime. And so
you said you're in Palmer. And I've asked a lot of friends in Palmer and Wasilla. They got a lot of snow, a little bit less than us, but still a lot of snow. And the feedback I heard and some of those folks were actually in Anchorage during the snowstorm, that those roads were plowed pretty good.
Palmer is historically pretty good because we got a DOT station here, we got borough that comes through, and we also have city plows. The state roads up here are great because it's excess gravel. They put gravel going in, they put gravel coming back. So there's tons of salt road sand, so the roads stay really good, and the main thoroughfares are good. But you drive through my neighborhood here, half the roads still haven't been plowed, and so we're 7 days past the first snowstorm, 8 days, and is this going to continue all winter long, or do we got to get private contractors in here to come make it up, like McKenna Brothers does from Big Lake all the way to Girdwood?
Well, it's more than 8
and
days.
They pick up the
It's
slack
10
for
days.
Muni, and they do an excellent job. It's prioritizing the resources first, but also doing it in an efficient manner. When you plow one street and you come back 2 hours later and you plow the same thing that really hasn't gotten the snowfall the other streets have, then that's inefficiency to me. And we used to have a no plow goes through the intersection without dropping the blade thing, but I haven't seen that this year either. So the point is we have private sector enterprises that take some of these contracts in a backup or emergency situation. When we see these snowfalls coming, we need to get those guys on the priority roads as well with the city and DOT. And all it comes down to is better coordination. It's all it is better coordination. And look at the economic impact, the kids losing out on school, the teachers that aren't getting paid, the hourly employees that aren't salaried government employees that are missing out on time. It's a massive amount of economic impact when the snow can't be removed from the streets and sidewalks.
Thanks a lot for coming on, Eric. I really appreciate your time and your feedback. We really enjoyed hearing from you.
All right, thanks for the forum.
Yep.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
I want to go back to Dan. You had something you wanted to say before the last break, but and also I wanted to ask you about, what he said about the wages and sector. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, that's what I want to ask about. I appreciate Eric's comments, but I think at the end of the day, we get the level of service that we're willing to pay for. And as the mayor previously was speaking about wage increases for the police department, for instance, I think snow removal is a public safety issue. It's also a public health issue. Myself and Member Zolotel, as co-chairs of the Health Policy Committee, we devoted an entire committee meeting to talking about the effects of snow removal on public health. And we brought in mobility disability advocates. We brought in folks with vision impairments, which is very important to me in my other job. And we had members of the administration who participated. Lance Wilbur showed up. He's the Director of Economic and Community Development, which directly oversees public works, including M&O and snow removal, street maintenance. Jamie Acton, our Director of Public Transportation, was there. Chief Schrage with the fire department was there. And we really wanted to impress upon the administration, what do people do, particularly those folks in our community who may have disabilities? What do they do when they can't get to pick up their medications, to their doctor's appointments, to dialysis, to the grocery store? And what happens when we have to shut down anchor rides, and how does that jeopardize the municipality's obligations to ADA compliance? And so, rather than just litigate the past, I want to be forward thinking. And to that end, the Assembly did, myself and Member Zolotel brought forward a separate appropriation to fund a study on best practices in snow removal, as well as right-of-way and parking management, $1 million for that study. But going forward, to the mayor's point, we have to be forward-looking, and it does take some lead time in order to establish the level of service that we want to see in our community, as well as the repairs and the equipment that we need. And so my question is, Mr. Mayor, are you willing to open the contract? Are you open to a wage reopener? Because I do think that competitive compensation for our operators is really what's going to allow us to respond in a higher than average snow year.
This is for the city, it's a local 302, and the state's
Operators.
71, so it's two different unions for the city and the state.
Yeah, and I'm not obviously getting into the state issue. So again, I'll get to a short answer for you. Again, we started this pay study, this coordinated pay study. We also did an internal pay study. And the issue has gotten so, I think, urgent that external to that process, we're going to do in this section 3.30, I think 125, I believe, is the code that allows the mayor to step in emergent situations and increase pay for some folks. The union's not, for obvious reasons. I'm a 30-year union guy, so I kind of understand that. But yes, to get your answer, yes, we are looking at, and I'm very open to the notion, because we've discussed it, and Raylene has numbers. She briefed us a couple weeks ago Deputy Director of HR, she briefed us on what her plan is going forward. I'm not giving those numbers out. We've been working on this for quite some time.
Okay, we're gonna go.
The numbers because we're talking about snow removal here. Paul, in the last 4 to 5 months, Paul's interviewed 100 people, roughly, for snow plowing jobs. He's hired 6. So at the end of the day, snow plowing is not an unskilled job whatsoever.
Agreed.
You've got a large piece of equipment. We've only got one that's old school, that's the levers. All the other 29 are joystick operated graders. Just to finish, so when you're driving along and someone's $50,000 car is sitting on the curb, you don't want someone with no experience. That's why when we got the guy from Fairbanks, it was such a
One of the things I heard from the folks at DOT was when you get a new person who hasn't done this for a while or just started, there's a big learning curve.
Very big.
And some of the guys that are longer term or drivers that are longer term, they went to the airport, some of them have gone to the private sector. So, you know, it's kind of a...
And the airport is an entirely different
perfect
thing
storm where you have...
altogether. So at the end of the day, is what happened due to the depth and weight of the snow due to the water is the state has high-speed snow plows. So it's essentially a dump truck, possibly with a belly blade, but it has a large blade out front and quite possibly a sander in the back. They're supposed to drive around 30, 40, 50 miles an hour and move snow. Very common and also in the interstate system, lower 48. The breakdown for them was that when the snow got so wet, so heavy, you can't move it with those kind of equipment efficiently. You simply have to have a grader. And all of our graders were on all of our roads, working 12 on, 12 off, and I think we're at day 10, maybe day 9 on. There's no break, and they're going to keep going until it's done, and until they pull themselves off for rest.
We're going to go. We have somebody else on Zoom. We're going to go back to. If we have anybody in the room that wants to chat, I'll come around with a mobile cam, and I'd love to hear from you guys about the snow situation. So we have. Sorry, my battery broke in my little earpiece. So we're going to get that fixed. Who do we have here? Can you hear me?
My name is Anya.
Say it again.
My name is Anya. Can you guys hear me?
Tell us where you're from, where do you live, how long you lived in Anchorage for, and we're kind of curious how the snow has impacted you in the plowing situation.
So I have lived in Anchorage going on my 3rd winter, so pretty much all I've experienced is the crappy snow removal job that is happening outside right now. I am in one of the very last sectors to be plowed, and it's horrid. Like, horrid. I had to stay home a couple days from work because my car has all-wheel drive, studs, but I couldn't make it to the main roads.
What part of town do you live in?
I live on the east side over by the curve, kind of.
Muldoon?
And the state roads got cleared pretty quickly, actually, but getting to them is impossible.
Could you turn that up a little bit, Scott, in the room? Sorry.
I think she's saying the state roads got cleared.
Yeah, the state roads got cleared pretty quickly, but you can't get to them. We had ambulances get stuck. We had fire trucks get stuck. So for the mayor to be like, hey, we're going to help the state, great. Was it the correct decision? I don't know, because first responders still couldn't respond. They had to have people help them get people out of neighborhoods so they could be safely transported. Like, it's absolutely abhorrent outside, and it just makes you worry if there were a larger storm or a really paralyzing storm, would we be prepared? Clearly not.
What would you say this November is compared to last December? Were you here last December?
I was, and last December was absolutely horrible too. And I was hoping the mayor came out and was like, you know what, we're prepared. I do not call what is happening outside prepared. Literally, same shit, different year. And it's awful. Like, what is the plan moving forward so this doesn't happen? I realize that we have a lot of snow, and last year we got a lot of snow, this year we got a lot of snow. But honestly, I'm tired of the excuses that, oh, we've had a lot of snow. Oh, it's a wet snow. Like, great. Then we should have been prepared for it in either of, like, I don't know. We need to prepare for those types of things, and obviously we aren't prepared for it. So what happens now when we get more snow in December? Are we all just ready to hunker down again?
Well, thank you, Anya, for calling in and participating. I talked to a lot of people in East Anchorage, and I heard a lot of stories, and people have sent a lot of pictures and videos. So I know the East Anchorage was pretty heavily impacted. So thank you for participating and coming on the show. Mayor, I want to ask you, and I kind of touched on this before. What if this happens? Like, what if we have another storm system like this next month or next week or in January? I mean, is it going to be the same? The schools and everything? Are we any more prepared? Because we know that equipment's really, that's an issue. We aren't able to get equipment very quickly. That's a big lead time, and then also so still some vacancies. So I mean, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, in the snowplowing crew, there are no vacancies. I just spoke with Paul about that. We're at 68 or 69, depending on the day. We're at 26 to 29 graders at any given, and the grader rate now, in the future, it's not going to be that. Here, as we do the snow haul, the front end loaders and side dumps, rear dumps will be a little bit more important. But we broke one hard here last week on 5th. We hit a manhole cover, and so we went from 30 to 29. Then depending on the maintenance status at any given shift, any given moment, we're anywhere from 25, 26 up to 29. But to answer, I think it was not Anya, it was Tanya, I think.
I missed the name.
Yeah. Tanya's point is exactly right. I mean, this really sucks, but guess what? You have a hurricane in. That really sucks. And how do you plan for that? You don't, unless you want to pay a whole lot more in property taxes, a lot more.
Well, I mean, if you talk about hurricane, I mean, they know there's hurricanes in Florida, and when that happens, if the governor takes the heat for that. Usually, there was this hurricane a couple years ago, and Ron DeSantis talked about
he takes the heat for the response, and I think that's Tanya's point exactly. I'm taking the heat for the response, but I have to balance things.
Well, I say DOT is still the governor.
I'm talking to an elderly lady in her 80s here, and she says, my husband just died. She pays a lot in property taxes. I think she said, I pay $11,000 a year in property taxes. And she says, I can't afford my house. Well, see, in the old days, when we had the housing, is what happens normally when you get into your 70s and 80s, and you don't want to be in the house you built when you were 30s or 40s, because you don't want to shovel snow and you don't want to mow the lawn. So you'd move down into that condo. The housing doesn't exist, so you go from paying $11,000 a year in property taxes in the house that you love, that you would like to stay in, and I get this a lot, and they say, now I'm going homeless. Because it's not there. The volume of homes isn't there. Well, guess what? The reason they're paying so much in property taxes is because we spend so much.
Well, I think some might say, and I'll ask you guys about this. I mean, Palmer, Wasilla, and the Vancouver have a city sales tax, and there's been
go ahead, Daniel. Then I'll go.
An offsetting sales because property taxes are high. But we don't pay other taxes in the city, so maybe, I'm not saying that's a solution.
Well, that's another discussion.
Actually, sorry, I would like Daniel to respond, and then I would like to respond.
I will say that the Assembly did recently increase the residential property tax exemption. I also quickly want to pivot back to what Tanya was talking about, and to the mayor's point that this is a very skilled profession. These operators are very skilled, and I can appreciate the challenges in terms of hiring a skilled workforce. But what Tanya was saying is that it's difficult to get out of her neighborhood. And that is a concern that I have when we are looking at just contracting with the private sector in an emergency situation, is that I don't think that the skill level is as high. And I think that we are seeing not just a lack of quantity of response, but a lack of quality in our response. When people shovel their driveways and then contract plowers just come through and put the snow right back in their driveway and they can't get out. Or when neighbors use their own snow blowers to carve a path on the sidewalk so folks can get in and out, and then the plows come through and put the snow right back on the sidewalk. So for me, I would rather, if it were up to me, pay a little bit more to retain a skilled workforce who can do this work with expertise.
I think Felix Mike's okay.
Yeah, thanks. So, I think there has been a viral billboard that's gone around that I think is a really great example of what's been going on. And that billboard has Mayor Bronson's face on it, and it says, incompetence has a price. And boy, are we learning that. Incompetence has a price. The mayor said that this is not going to happen again after last year. The mayor said, we have a plan, everything is fine. And yet here we are, paying through the nose with contractors with up to $280 per hour for an overtime and with one of those contracts. This is ridiculous. We're going to pay one way or the other, and I would like us to invest in our workforce and make sure that the municipal workforce is adequately paid and that not our tax dollars aren't going to, frankly, some of the friends of the mayor, right? That is not something that we should be having. I do have a question.
Well, I'm going to let the mayor address that real quick if you want to.
Address what?
What he just said, if you want to speak on that.
Well, I'll answer the question with the question. You want to hire a whole lot more people, which is what you just said. What do they do all summer? See, I come back to this, call it a pyramid, whatever you want. We've got our 302 operators. Those are our core people. They work for us. Then you have your term contract, and you have your emergency contracts. We man, we staff, and we budget for the average snowfall. This was not an average snowfall. And you flex with contracts. Because we're going to be paying through the nose when I've got a bunch of snowplow drivers sitting around all summer with not enough roads to patch. That's how it works. I'm sorry, that's math. It's reality, Felix. That's the way it works. And I'll bring up something here since
I don't know if you've been on our roads this summer. We got plenty of roads to patch, Mr. Mayor.
And we set a record in patching snow. We set up a hotline.
And yet it wasn't enough,
for patching
Mr. Mayor.
roads.
It wasn't enough.
Okay, since it seems like the campaign's already begun, in the last 3 years, Mr. Rivera spent $161 million on homelessness, and we don't even have a permanent shelter to show for it. And now he wants me to declare a civil emergency to get people into a warming shelter. So if you want to talk about paying the price for incompetence, I'd look at the other end of the table because, quite frankly, we've got 49 people have died in this city on the street because they didn't have shelter. That's the reality. So if you want to deal with incompetence,
we're not covering homelessness here, but I'll let you briefly respond. I mean, it's true. We have spent a lot of money in homelessness, and that is another problem that we face. It hasn't gotten better. It's gotten worse. I mean, I was down there on 3rd Avenue this summer. It was not a great situation. It was a very dangerous situation. So we're not going to spend too much time on homelessness, but fair point. You know, we have spent a lot of money.
So Jeff, if you want to host another one of these to talk about homelessness, let's do it.
I do, and I want to do that. So, but I want to go back to the wage. I'm an expert here, but why can't we hire people for 6 months on, pay them? There's other work if it's not snowing.
Well, remember we did this. They're called seasonal contracts. And in 2017, the Assembly and the mayor got rid of 6 seasonal contracts. Sidewalk plowers, let's be specific. The sidewalk plowers don't run graders. They don't even need CDLs. So, and I'm not saying, but because those are people we want to get, we really want to hire them so we can train them up, get them a CDL, and then hopefully get them in a truck and then get them into a grader. We're really trying to do that. Is pay an important part of this? Well, of course it is. So, but what I'm saying here is, I haven't heard about this, Felix, from you until all of a sudden the snow hit last year. So I ordered a pay study to see where we are competitively. We found out with the police that we're grossly underpaid in police because, and I'm a fiscal conservative, there's this notion that I'm this AO 37 kind of guy. I'm the exact opposite. You have to pay for what you want. And if we have to pay more for snowplow drivers, we're going to pay more for snowplow drivers. But it takes time. You just can't snap a finger in the budget cycle, we just talked about that, and say we're going to magically have 20 or 30 new snowplow drivers and 10 or 11 more graders online for them to sit in, because you can hire all the people you want. But the capital, the timeline for bringing on graders is a long time.
I would say, and I think most people would agree, that the current situation, if we maintain it, and this happens again, I don't think it's going to be any different for the city and the state. So
if we go back to our every week we get 6, 8, maybe even 10 inches of snow, that's what I'm used to for the last 32 years here, this is not a problem. But when you get a massive snowfall like we've had in the last 2 years, and if it's the new norm, let's staff up, let's plus up for that. But we're going to have to go to the taxpayers and explain that. I'm completely open to that. But the notion that you take a couple of storms in a couple of months, last December, this November, and say we're going to do a complete revamp of a plan. If Paul wants it, fine, we'll do it. To me, I just want to right size, and I give my directors what they want. I don't micromanage any director in this city.
Well, I want to take another. I want to get back to Felix, but we're going to take a quick break, and then I'll let you go real quick, Felix. After this, we're going to take a break, and then I want to go to some of the folks in the room. Sorry about that. We're having a good discussion here, but I want to get to some of the folks in the room and hear from them. And we'll hear from Felix, and we'll take a quick break. Go ahead, Felix. I'm going to give you a chance to, if you wanted to say something, then we'll go to a break.
Sure. Yeah.
Wait, did we already go? We might have went to a break. We'll get you after the break.
That's fair.
We'll come back after the break. Take a quick break. I thought I said last word. But... Okay, we're back here for our kind of discussion, town hall on the snow plowing situation in Anchorage. We're joined by Anchorage Mayor Dave Bronson and Daniel Voland and Felix Rivera from the Anchorage Assembly. We're going to talk about some of this more at length here on the situation with, if you just tuned in, we're talking about the plowing, the wages, the equipment, and kind of the amount of snow we've had here this November and last December, and how we're going to deal with if we have more storms like that coming going forward. But for now, we got a lot of folks in the room here. We had some folks on Zoom earlier, but I want to go around and if you want to talk or if you have anything to say, just kind of raise your hand and I'll come over to you and just tell me who you are, and we'll start over here with Jordan. Jordan from the union
Local
guy,
71.
Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Jordan Adams, Local 71 business manager.
So you guys deal with the city, right?
We are the state.
I'm sorry, state. The 302 is the city. So you
the
guys
separation
are dealing
there.
with the state DOT contract.
Yeah, and the same issues that the mayor's running into. It's a big problem. And I've been interviewed a couple times this week and asked about staffing levels. What do we all need? Well, what we have currently isn't enough, and what is being proposed may be too much, but there's a fine line in there, and I think the mayor and the state and everybody else are all looking for that fine line. But what's that going to be? Does it come down to wages and benefits? Sure it does. We have a very limited skilled trade group right now in Alaska, and it's getting smaller. So you have all of the unions fighting over the same personnel, and so the wages are coming up. We got to get more people. We got to get more people through the school systems. You know, when we were all young men and going through college, you could do that route or go into the trades. A lot of us chose.
Tell me about the
skilled
airport.
trades.
We talked about that before, but their decision to raise wages by 30%.
Yeah.
And I talked to some of the folks over there and Craig Campbell, and they basically, they knew they foresaw this, and if the airport shuts down for a day, that's a huge hit. I mean, hundreds of flights, cargo flights, passenger flights. Mayor, used to pilot for cargo. So
yeah,
how did that happen? I mean, can you go outside of the contract and say, well, if we want to pay more, you guys aren't going to say no, right?
No, absolutely. So that came through Craig Campbell. Absolutely. He wanted to have an incentive for the airport. What was that going to be? 30%. Well, we added the 30%. Most of the vacancies went away. The airport hasn't shut down through all of this. They've done an amazing job. I came into this meeting 30 minutes late. I just wanted to say, for all the snowplowers out there and all the support people with it, they're doing a bang-up job. They're working. They want to make those roads safe for their wives and children and your friends and family too. So they're putting in 12 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week. Let's not forget all that. We just need more of them.
What about, there was just the Resource Development Council had their annual conference, and there was a lot of talk about this Willow project and maybe this Pika project, and something I thought about was, well, what if there's more jobs for operators and CDL drivers?
There will be.
Those are good paying jobs.
Yeah.
How could that, what impact could that have on city and state plow drivers and grader drivers?
Absolutely. The mine coming out of Northway, that's going to rob a bunch of people from the interior. All the other positions coming available here, the infrastructure money that's coming up, those are all going to rob from the current pool of employees we have now. So how do we incentivize people to come in? It all comes down to wages and benefits. Wages and benefits, and then the mayor and the state get to figure out how many people we need in each one of those scenarios in each locations to make it right. But what we have right now is not enough.
Now the 302 guys in the city, they do, through the union, have a defined benefit pension, right? But in the state,
we don't.
The Tier 4, it's just kind of a 401. So if you have a job with a private contractor, a private company, and they're doing a match or something, it's still the same, essentially, pension or retirement, 401k, right?
Yeah, so the state switched to a 401k in 2006. So here we've been dealing with this for 18 years. We just had a union meeting earlier today. Two people in the union hall raised their hands who has a pension, myself and one of the foremen. And I don't work for the state, I haven't in 15 years. So if we're going to get that level of personnel back, to get them in, that's what's going to take. And, push that SB 88 that's out there. We're trying to get that as well. That's trying to bring back defined benefits to public employees. We are we're the only state currently that doesn't offer a pension program.
Thanks, Jordan. I want to go around. If anybody else wants to talk or has anything to say, this guy over here looks pretty damn excited, so I'm going to go to this guy. I don't want to say no to you, buddy.
Phil Petrie, I'm Local 71.
Come over here a little bit in the light. We're going to move you over here so we can...
Local 71 president of our union. I'm also a state employee, 23 years out at the airport. I'm equipment maintenance foreman. I take care of all of our equipment out there. I've got 18 guys under us. Yes, like Jordan says, our guys are working 712s. At the airport, we've been on 712s during this storm. I would like to make one big notable difference here and agree with the mayor. This snowstorm, we had 39 inches in 9 days. This is not a normal snowfall. So last year when we had 41 inches out at the airport and we didn't close, by the way, the airport's never closed. You can always get on in your flights. We haven't done it in 72 years. So, and there is a big difference between state, muni, and the way we all operate. Could there be better coordination in that? Probably so. The big thing I want to bring up is lane miles. I know on the state side, you know, we're fully staffed. They're out there running it, but the Seward Highway has gone from 2 lanes to 4 lanes in places. Roundabouts, same thing with the muni. You know, roads have been improved, medians have been put in. That all impacts plowing. That all takes extra time. That all hinders what we're trying to do out there.
How long have you been doing this for, you said?
23 years I've been with the state.
So one thing I heard was if you go back 10 or 20 years, there was city and state had more positions in these jobs. So
Yes.
now there, which is it, to me interesting because we have more people and more roads.
Correct.
So I guess what your thoughts on that over time? You know, maybe the same or less people, but more roads.
Yeah, definitely. We're asked to do more with less. I mean, they take positions away from us. In my shop alone, I've lost one PCN over it since I've been foreman for the last 5 years. We haven't added anymore, but our runways have been widened. Our taxiways have been widened. We have more lane miles to take care of. Matter of fact, we're contracting out our parking lots out at the airport because we physically don't have the bodies to do that and take care of the airport.
Have you seen?
side.
I've heard this from some people where some of the members, people with jobs in the city or state, have said, "Well, I found a much higher paying job in the private sector."
I lost 2 heavy duty mechanics here just recently. Our starting wage, we do have the 30%. We went from $23.71 an hour to $31.74.
This is at the airport.
At the airport. I still lost 2 guys that went to work for $302 for $42 an hour. Even with that 30%, that's not enough. The governor has given his legislative staff and all the other non-reps over 67% in pay increases during his administration, yet us unions have got less than 7%, some of us.
Well,
So there's a big discrepancy
the
here.
dispatchers and DPS and the state public safety, they got a 30%, because they were retaining
Correct.
people.
Vacancies. I
So
mean, that's
same
you know, the state is severely vacant on positions, and it all comes down to, it's a simple answer, it's money. You know, this defined contribution is not working. I'm one of the guys that has the pension, me and Jordan. You know, in that room, everybody else is Tier 4. It's hard to tell people to come to work for the state under a Tier 4 system when you can go work for a private contractor. You can go work for the muni with a pension and more money. I can't sell people to come and work for me anymore with the current thing, the current way our system's set up. There's got to be some changes. But, you know, all our operators are doing a great job, state, muni, even the contractors out there keeping things cleared. Just remember, this is not a normal snowfall. You see it all over Facebook. We set a record for November. Do we need to increase staffing at all levels? Yeah, we do, because I think we need to look at what's changed infrastructure-wise, lane miles, muni, state, and base from there. The state on the SEF side has lost 6 PCNs within the last 10 years, you know, but yet lane miles has been increased. So, you know, we lose these positions, and I agree, if we want services, we got to pay for them. You know, I think everybody is willing to pay for them.
Well, everybody I've talked to has said that. So,
yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Anybody else want to say anything? We got Dustin Darden. Got to let him come in. Can't say no to that guy. You used to work for the city maintenance, didn't you, Dustin?
Yeah, I worked for Fleet Services for 8 years.
You've lived here a long time in Anchorage, yeah?
I have, and my position was actually written out of the budget by the mayor. So where I would go pick up the side,
about that.
Yeah, those side gate edges that go in front of your house, they drop them right before. So it doesn't put the 3-foot berm in front of your driveway. I used to go pick up those gate edges, hoist them over my shoulder, load them in the back of a pickup truck. Now you got a mechanic getting paid $55 an hour that could be fixing these graders, going to pick these things up. And something else I'm noticing is that since you wrote my job out of the budget, which isn't typical. Usually use attrition, wait for somebody to, their job, they die, they quit or get fired. But anyways.
Well, you go to the meetings a lot and yell at people.
I go to the meetings a lot and I talk. I express my First Amendment Constitution to freedom of speech and freedom of press. And the thing is that in these situations, sometimes you got to dig deep, and it wound up putting me in a place that I love. I'm now driving a school bus, and what I've learned with the school bus driving, you got a 40-foot bus, you put hard chains on that thing, and it's a simple solution. There's a lot of things we complain about, but sometimes life throws you struggles. But when you can get knocked down and you get back up and you throw a punch, it's unstoppable. And something else that I see no one talking about is that the amateur ham radio operators put out a release, and no one's really talking about it, but on the peak of the snowfall, they were shooting off the most frequencies in conjunction with Raytheon 747s, Kalitna, Atlas, and Korean Air. And they're seeding these clouds. You think it's funny, but you go to United Arab Emirates in Dubai, you ask them how they make rain in the desert. They put the dispersants out there, so we can't put all the pressure on the mayor. But I am going to apply for that position for the mayor, which I've registered for, because I believe I can work with people.
We wish you the best of luck on that.
Yeah, I'm running for mayor.
If I do go to the Emirates, I will look into the
race.
Thank Anybody else want to talk about? Got somebody over here wants to say something. Tell us who you are, what's your name, and who you're with.
Tristan Ratcliffe, South Side, over by Diamond Center. And I was wondering if
you live there?
Over close by Diamond Center, not. So I was wondering if we have 30 graders, right? Is that what he said?
I think that's what the city has, about 30.
Okay. So my question is, if you work on the, and I've seen on the, all of us have seen on the road, if you have 1.5 lanes on the main road, but none of the side roads are done, why can't you just take a few of those people from the graders from the main road and work on the side roads? I mean, half of 30 is 15. Is that not going to work?
That's a good question. I don't know if anybody's qualified to answer that, the mayor or anybody in the room here, but I mean, I know the mayor did. I'll go back to the mayor. You did do a little bit of picking up some of the state roads that weren't done. So again, we talked about that earlier. Maybe address that again about what the delineation is of the city road or state road.
And Jordan might be able to answer a little more clearly, but my understanding is it's maybe a mismatch of equipment based on the type and weight of snow. And I think I talked about it a while ago, which was when you get to heavy wet snow beyond a certain point, you go to a grader. You have to. And the high-speed plows, the one we talked about with front of a truck, it doesn't work as well, and it actually starts slowing things down. I don't know, Jordan, is that true?
Yeah, and there's a difference between.
Hold on 1 second, Jordan. I'll come back to you. I feel like I'm kind of Maury Povich here.
Yeah, there's a big difference between state roads and who does what. I mean, we're all willing to help out a little bit with one another, but you get to a certain point in the snow fighting, what we used to call it in Fairbanks anyway, when do you step up and move to the next equipment? You know, the high-speed snow plows, I mean, 35, 40 miles an hour, that's what they're willing to do. But you're right. I mean, at a certain point, they don't drive slow well. So when you drive slow, they 4-foot berms.
What about some of the people we've seen a lot of videos where people have just gotten their own trucks or their snow blowers, they've gone in the streets and kind of done it. What is that creates situations where the snow might be in a place they can't get to? Or how does that have impacts when people
kind of, I mean, I think we're all guilty of it to a certain extent. You know, you want to give some of the city snow back to the road and they give it back to you every once in a while. But we have amazing citizens. I mean, my neighbors plowed my driveway before I got home, helped me clean up the berm. I'm going to do that for all my neighbors. There is a little bit of oomph that the community needs for something like this, and we're all doing that. But now we're overwhelmed. We got no place to put it. So our little snow blowers just aren't cutting it.
What about, talk to me about a person who's just started driving a grader or a plow compared to somebody who's been doing it for 5 or 10 years. What's the learning curve on getting out on the roads, learning the equipment? How does that factor in?
It's a decent learning curve. I want to thank Nintendo for training everybody in the 80s and 90s, honestly.
It's joysticks now.
It's joysticks. So the mayor's absolutely right. The old 9, on the grader, you don't run those anymore. 2 joysticks, that's it. I mean, it's like you're like a jet pilot out there now. But the equipment's changed. The personnel's changed. What else did you need out of that?
Just the kind of when you have a lot of newer drivers, and if folks maybe take different jobs or retire. What kind of learning curve are we dealing with here?
Yeah, it's a long learning curve. I mean, you got people that can pick it up pretty quick. I mean, I have taught people to operate equipment before. I've been super impressed by young people, but generally, it's a familiarity And when we hire contractors that go into your neighborhood, they don't know where your curbs are. They don't know where all the hidden fire hydrants are. But we're out there, going back to what we do, the city and the state. I mean, we're trying to make the road safer for police, fire, ambulances, everybody else. I've heard a lot of complaints personally about that. Yeah.
Anybody else want to say anything? Oh, we got somebody over here. Come on over. Hi. Tell us your name and where you live.
So I'm
Step a little bit
sorry.
over here. Perfect.
Tracy Smith. I live east side Muldoon area, and yeah, we're one of the last to get anything. Fortunately, I do live on a street that has like the Mary Conrad Center at the end of it, so we have emergency vehicles going down all the time, which means the plows tend to hit that street first, but all the side streets, the cul-de-sacs, we get left for last, and sometimes you get stuck on your own street and can't even get to like the main areas. I'm also a dispatcher for Local 71. We do recruitment for the state of Alaska's operators, mechanics, and that's the thing I wanted to hit on is that not only are we short on operators and where the highways now have 5 less positions than they had 10 years ago to deal with all the extra streets, but we're also very, very short on mechanics to take care of all of that equipment. So making sure that we have the equipment
Well, when I was over
available.
touring the DOT facility, I think they have 8 graders in Anchorage, and I was told 5 or 6 are operating, and I said, well, what about mechanics? And the guy kind of laughed. He said, you think we have a hard time finding drivers?
We have a
real hard time
much
finding
harder,
mechanics.
Yeah,
That's
much
what I
harder
was
time
told.
finding mechanics. Absolutely.
How much vacancy?
40% vacancy for mechanics.
And that's because they can hire jobs in the private sector? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And even though they'll bring them in at what we call higher pay steps, that's still not high enough to compete with private sector mechanics in order to take care of our equipment.
How long have you been working with dispatcher for the union for?
23 years.
So I guess I'm just curious about your overall in Anchorage.
Mhm.
What do you think in the last couple of years compared to? I mean, I moved here in 2004, and I felt like starting about 2015 when price of oil went down, I started to notice a little bit less plowing. I'm curious if you have seen that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the on top of that, like they were saying earlier, we lost a defined benefits package to be able to offer these guys to give them the incentive to work for the state rather than private sector because they went to a 401k back in 2006. In addition, I don't know if you guys, well, you were here in 2004, but in 2002 we had that like 3-foot snow dump where everybody got stuck it was a St. Patrick's Day weekend.
I wasn't here,
Yeah.
but I've heard
So,
about it.
I mean, that got actually cleaned up within a couple of days. So obviously we have a lot less going on now, and then the wages haven't kept up, and then going to a defined contribution rather than defined benefits retirement has really hurt recruitment for those positions.
Well, thanks for talking to us. I appreciate it. Anybody else want to? This guy over here. Come on over. I feel like Phil Donahue over here.
One short comment. I heard a couple of times asking what the learning curve
Yeah,
is
that was
for
me, yeah.
how to run a grader. The state of Alaska is not looking for people who are wanting to learn this stuff. They are looking for people who know how to run every piece of equipment they have and be a truck driver at the same time. So that any single equipment operator with the state can be told to grab any piece of equipment, go out anywhere they need to by themselves, unload, do all the work they need to, load back up and come home. So we're looking for 2 professions for half the price of one.
One thing I heard when I was going out there, I was at the DOT facility, we went around, followed some of the graders. There's the sidewalks that they do as well. And I asked him what kind of requirements that takes to drive one of those little sidewalks, and he said basically nothing. And he said the same people driving the plows or the graders are doing that. And I think in some places they've outsourced some of that. I mean, is that something should be outsourced? I mean, should the people who are driving the graders and the plows also be doing the sidewalks?
City or state? You got to do.
State.
Okay,
State.
I'll stay out of
DOT,
it.
yeah.
So we do the sidewalk. The state does the sidewalks out in the valley. I'm not sure how it all works inside the city, but any state road that has sidewalks, we also do the snow removal on that out there. What was the second part?
Well, I guess outsourcing that because I was told that there's a shortage of people already, and then they have to go back and get into these little, I don't know, these little deals that has a little brush on the front.
Yeah.
That's a sidewalk.
So as far as contracting out any of that stuff, whenever you contract stuff out, a private contractor has requirements that they have before they have to go out, right? And they also don't like losing money with you scraping off blades off their equipment. You know, with every state worker out there, we're out doing everything we can every day, getting everything down to the bare minimum that we can get, right? And get the roads as good as possible. But on my road, the private contractor...
Where are you at?
Out in Big Lake, out in the valley. But the private contractor doesn't have to come out unless there's 3 inches of snow. And everybody knows what it's like when you get 7 1.5-inch dumps. You know, my road's 8 inches taller, rut it all out, and they haven't had to come, right? And then when they do come, equipment's either subpar, blades are, you know, past wore out, you know, but anyhow, it's
when I was over the DOT, I got a picture. I mean, there was a stack of maybe 60 or 80 blades that they had taken off that, you know, they wear down and they're steel, and I was told they got more expensive, and they're also harder to get now.
Yeah.
These big blades they put under the belly blade.
I
So
mean, you're not wanting to grind them off your truck, but you know, if you don't use them, you don't go through them.
I appreciate talking. Get somebody. Patrick here. Yeah. Patrick Fitzgerald from the Teamsters.
Yeah, Teamsters Local 9.
He's the new Jesse Carr, folks.
No, I'm not. Do not put that on paper. I just kind of want to clarify something. You know, we've talked about vacancies quite a bit. This is on the state level. It's on the muni level. What you're seeing is if you cut 5 positions and you have 3 vacancies, you don't have 3 vacancies. You have 8. And that's something that we're seeing across the state. We're seeing it with organized labor, non-organized labor. And when you cut those positions, you're losing that experience. You're losing people who know how to do the job, know how to do the work. And then when we can't hire anyone back because we have bad retirement, bad health care, all that stuff, it's really difficult to retrain those positions. So that's something for the mayor, the assembly, the state legislature, everyone to keep in mind is when these positions get cut, you're cutting experience. You're cutting people who know how to do the job, who know how to do the work. And then when times like this comes and you need more snow plowers, more graders, etc., recruiting those is much more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to put that.
Well, thanks a lot, Patrick. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, one thing I do want to correct a little bit. You had said was that the snowplow drivers on the sidewalks, the snow blower drivers, it would be a better, that it's unskilled, and it's actually, and Jordan mentioned this.
Well, I didn't say unskilled. I said some of the people that are doing the grading and the plowing, they don't have enough folks, so they get to that next, and it's not as skilled
right,
as a big grader.
It is because Jordan
big
mentioned something even in the snow plowing site. You learn your route. You know where the fire hydrants are. You know where the lawns are, because in a cul-de-sac or on a curved road, you don't want a blade 3 feet up into someone's lawn that you got to go back and repair come summertime. It's the same with the sidewalk drivers. They know where the fire hydrants are. They know where the obstacles are, and so I don't think we need to diminish their importance because we're real happy to get them, and then we train them, and hopefully they stay with us and they work up and they mature into say a grader driver or truck driver. So I just wanted to clarify.
Well,
that.
I want to kind of transition here to we're talking about next year's budget right now with the assembly and the mayor. So I guess my question is, what are we looking at now for not this winter but next winter during this budget? Are we adding a little bit?
We did. Okay. Both the assembly and I did.
So I guess I'll go to you guys. How do you foresee next winter?
If I can't answer a scope, Kent Colhay's municipal manager, he says, in order to plow record storm in our normal response time, which is the 84 hours, which starts at the beginning of of going into the neighborhoods. So he says we would need 60 more operators, and that's at $10 million a year. And he says we'd need 30 more graders, one-time purchase of $10 million. And that doesn't include additional mechanics and other support. So if we're willing to pay that kind of money, I'm a little agnostic on it. But my thing is we have the contractors out there. So again, 3 levels of snow plowing, our 302, and then our term, and then our. Because what do we do with all these people in the summertime?
Well, if those,
who's paying that?
I would say I feel like there's always work, but if those numbers are right, $20 million. I mean, what's our budget? Half $500 million. That's
$597.
It's not that much money in the grand scheme. I mean, there's probably some ways to, if it has to be.
Well,
and I'll be
fair to the assembly here and us. We don't get to operate in feelings much. We have to deal in data, so you can feel there might be a lot.
I'm a feelings guy.
Yeah, there might be a lot of feelings out there about how much work there is in the summer, but we've got professionals like Paul and Kent who've been here for many, many years. They know how much work is going to be out there, and a lot of that flex is based on our bonding and how much projects we have in the summer, how much sewer line, how much road we're building, all this other stuff. And at the end of the day, it goes like this: you've got to plan for the average snowfall. You can't plan for the peaks. You can't budget. You'll go broke, because when you're down here and we got another 5 years of what they call black winters, that is winters with no ice or with no snow, and we got a lot of people standing around doing nothing. Someone's still paying for that. That's a fixed cost.
I'll go to you, Dan. If that's the case, 20 million that doesn't to me seem like a big, in the grand scheme of a over $500 million budget.
Yeah, I think my perspective is I can appreciate that we wouldn't plan for a peak, but I don't think planning for the average is sufficient either. And I think I'm hearing a lot of frustration from my constituents about the current situation, as I did previously last winter. So I think we've got to settle on a realistic response. What is the value to the community? And again, I think it is just a baseline expectation of public safety and public health that we would be able to have a robust snow response. So I think that there's a delta there between what we're seeing now and what we need to plan for in the future. Again, I think the Assembly has laid some groundwork for that with the snow removal study that we've commissioned. And I do briefly want to go back and underscore some of the testimony we heard from the public just now, and I think it was Phil talked about the additional lane miles. That is something I think we really need to continue to hone in on. And in fact, it's something that the mayor and I have had a lot of dialogue about lately is, we just recently, we're in the process of finalizing our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which is our long-range transportation plan, how we spend millions and millions of dollars on infrastructure. And that's federal funds, it's state funds, and local funds. Myself and my colleagues have been very vocal on the record trying to right-size a highway expansion project that includes a diverging diamond and a vehicular underpass and expansion of 2 lanes of highway on the Seward Highway. One of the most expensive projects on the entire plan, $105 million. And the community councils, Rabbit Creek, Abbott Loop have both passed resolutions saying this is not what we want, it's just too big of a project. Really all we need is a pedestrian crossing here and we're happy. And so I do think we have to keep it forefront of our minds that every extra lane is a lane that must be maintained. And if we can't pay enough right now for the level of response that we need and compensate accordingly to the folks that are doing the hard work, that are out there in the cold battling the snow or snow fighting, I like that term, I think somebody used that, then we have no business.
No, Jordan.
Jordan said that. I think we have no business spending millions of dollars expanding infrastructure that we can't maintain. And so I think that is something that both the mayor and the Assembly, I think, are really paying close attention to right now. I'll turn it over to Felix.
Yeah, so, for my part, moving forward and looking into the future, I think there are 4 things that we really need to focus on. First of them is personnel. You said it, Jeff. 25 years ago, we had 94 operators. Now we have 84 operators, and as I understand it from talking with the union, that's at 84 operators at about a 12 to 14% vacancy. So, really, we're not trying to, as the mayor had said earlier, we're not trying to micromanage the situation. We're just trying to manage what we have, and so personnel is something that we need to take care of, and that includes wages and hiring more staff. I think equipment is something also that we need to take care of, whether that's on the mechanics end and making sure our equipment is able to be on the road as much as possible, or getting more equipment, right, and purchasing more equipment. I think coordination is another issue with DOT, with our private contractors, and with the school district. As I understand it, 2 years now in a row, the school district has offered to help coordinate with the municipality on snow plowing, but the municipality has not taken advantage of that opportunity.
Yes, we have.
So I think there's a lot more coordination that can happen.
I'll let the mayor jump in real quick there. Just make your last point, and then I'll let the mayor jump in.
And then the last thing that I think is important is, we need to take a look at our system overall, and we need to decide what we want. It was mentioned earlier that it used to be 48 hours, right? We were clear, and we were able to go on the roads just fine.
Well, I tried to look that up. I know it was 72 at one point. I tried to figure out when it.
Not 48, it was 72.
I couldn't figure out when it went to 84. I was trying to find the answer to that.
Now I think it's 96 is the new number,
84.
Right? So it's
Mayor, I'll let you address
we want
to
to
those
go.
total points there, but
Yeah, we coordinate with, notwithstanding a little inaccurate report in the ADN, I coordinate routinely personally, as well as Kent and
Is
Paul.
this the Superintendent Bryant saying that you asked them not to,
Well,
to close the schools? That wasn't the ADN yesterday,
we
I
did
think.
some checking. They say he said that. So I'll leave it there. At the end of the day, I haven't talked to Dr. Bryant in probably 4 or 5 months, but I talked to Jim Anderson a lot, and Kent talked to him, and Kent and Paul talked to him even more. We coordinate at a very in-depth level. O'Malley, we had the ARDSA or LRSA conflict with O'Malley Elementary up on Rockridge, and
If we can
it
pull- if we can pull that,
wasn't getting
post,
plowed, and they came to me and they says, Mayor, we got a problem. This street isn't getting plowed in front of the school, and I just said, send a plow up there. We'll figure out who's going to pay for it later, and by the time our plow gets there, the ARDSA or the LRSA contractor had showed up and was in the midst of plowing the street. It's about a quarter-mile section. It's kind of a messed up thing. That thing in and of itself has got to get straightened up, and I spoke with Zach Johnson on it, and it got straightened up. So the notion that we don't coordinate, Paul has actually on his own volition, has redirected assets in the last week to help out with the school district. I just spoke with him this afternoon about that, and he did. So, and I spoke with Kent as well about that. So the notion that we don't coordinate, I don't know where you get this stuff from, but
we have a post. I wanted to, if we can pull that post up, Scott. There was a woman that was complaining about. You're right. There was an issue with, was it the Muni or the LRSA, the Limited Road Service Area? It was the O'Malley school
Elementary,
issue.
yeah.
There was a
on Rockridge.
A Facebook screenshot, if you can pull that up. And I guess that school, when the other schools were open, that school remained closed.
It was the last one.
They couldn't, hit. Here we go, right here. This is the woman posted this. You look on either screen, but
yeah,
she's talking about that. And she did say when she called the office, you guys did come and take care of it.
We just sent a plow. This isn't complicated work, so.
But that's another question, that we have all these like LRSA and these road service areas all over the hillside, and I've heard from folks that said they contract out privately, and some have done great, but other people have said, well, it's contracting issue, it's citywide, but they haven't done as good of a job, and some of the roads are blocked.
Well, and just remember too, back in the early '80s, we added a feature that most other places don't have, and not all LRSAs have, which is we have, Dustin mentioned it, was the drop gate. We could speed up, we could make a huge difference on our snow plowing response if we just didn't have drop gates. Drop gates, the operators all know this, but it's a gate at the end of the main blade that drops down, and as it goes past your driveway, it doesn't allow the berm to drop in your driveway. And then when it gets to the edge of your property, you lift it, the snow spills, and there you go, over and over. It does slow us down. Our drivers are very vigilant in the sense of customer service. So if they do leave something, they'll back up, they'll go back. If we just could do straight blades and plow like crazy, we would really speed up our response time. But at the end of the day, the customer service isn't there, because the berm is a big thing.
Dustin's real excited about that shout out. We have Bill Pop on Zoom. Used to be with AEDC, and he's one of your opponents. He wanted to call in, so we'll go to him real quick. We pull the screen up. What do you guys? Fill time. We're gonna go to Bill. Oh, we got Bill. Here we go. Wanted to do a little quick filler time there. We got Bill Pop here. Can you hear me, Bill?
Hey, Jeff. It's been a great conversation. It's been interesting to listen to a lot of this.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us? You recently filed to run for mayor, and you were on the AEDC, you were the head of the Anchorage Economic Development Corporation for a while, and you lived here, I think, since about 17 years. You were elected to the Kenai borough a long time ago, so they have plowing down there. Maybe talk a little bit about your experience or your observations on plowing since you've been in Anchorage and on the Kenai.
Sure. Well, in the Kenai Peninsula Borough, we had the road service area system throughout the borough because we were responsible for areas outside the cities, but we would partner with the cities in some circumstances, and we'd have an organized plan between the cities as well as DOT to where we had good clarity in, the wide-ranging areas that we had, both semi-urban and rural. And it just strikes me, I'm sorry, but I've never seen anything like this in the decades that I've lived in Anchorage, as well as down on the Kenai Peninsula Borough, where, I tried to get out of my neighborhood Tuesday night, and there were 9 cars high centered on the snow on Wesleyan. And you couldn't get out of Wesleyan onto Northern Lights. You couldn't get over on any of the side streets to get over to Boniface. So basically you had hundreds of citizens isolated from emergency services, from any kind of help of any kind. And it's just perplexing to me, because it would seem to me after last winter, and we've had snows like this before. I was here when we had 132 inches that one winter. I remember that very clearly. I remember previous snowfalls that have happened in town that have definitely been hot and heavy. And you know, it's not the drivers. The drivers are bleeding out their eyes trying to get the work done. And you know, God love you guys. And the unions are sounding a call that, you know, we need better benefits, we need better wages, we need to be more competitive in a marketplace with a workforce that's got only barely enough workers to cover maybe 1/3 of the jobs being posted in Anchorage in simplistic terms. And so it's not just coming up with a strategy for dealing with this maintenance issue, which is significant, and having it well coordinated with the state. And by the way, you know, why do we have plows that require 35 to 40 plus miles an hour to be effective in our city when they're working on streets that have stoplights, in some cases every other block? What kind of equipment methodology is that for the state? And why aren't they thinking more rationally about the kind of plowing that they need to do in an urban setting? And these would be the kinds of things that I'd want to know about, and would want to have a more coordinated plan, so that we don't have to take our assets off of our municipal streets and put them onto the state operated streets, and basically set back getting neighborhood plowing done in many cases by a day and a half or more. It's just really perplexing to me, and I'm really challenged by this whole situation.
Well, thanks a lot, Bill. I'm going to let the mayor, sir, if you have anything to say,
Well,
you want to respond, or
we can agree. He's
a little pre-debate here for
perplexed by this. At the end of the day, I think everyone is agreeing. We've been at this, whatever, an hour and a half.
Almost done.
What's that?
We're going to finish up here in a few minutes.
Yeah, it was a lot of snow. That's not perplexing to me. The state normally does a pretty good job, except when it's really deep, and it's really wet, and it's really deep, and it's really wet. Do they wish they had more graders? I suppose, yeah, but it's the same old thing. It's a big storm. It's in Alaska. You got to expect this kind of the fact that Bill can't get out of his driveway. I couldn't get on. My wife was stuck in our cul-de-sac for a day while I'm downtown. And I do have to mention that Mayor Machicki was in my office the other day in the middle of all this.
The Kenai Peninsula Borough Mayor.
Yeah, so he's from the Kenai, and he explained their entire mechanism to me. And he says, "Yeah, we didn't get this kind of snow." He says, "Man, you got a mess." And he says, "Just ignore the politics." And he says, "Just plow the roads. You'll get through this." And there's a temptation here to throw the state under the bus. Or under the snowplow. I'm not going to go there, because we're blowing up our state employees. At the end of the day, everyone's out there hustling. The managers, everyone. To me, I mean, I eat, drink, and sleep this job.
Well, I'd say it's fair to criticize the policymakers, the governor, and the
yeah. If we want to get bigger, if we want to pay more labor, that's fine. How big that is, the delta that Daniel was talking about, that's the area if things are going to change. But I'm here to tell you, we're going to have this same meeting in the budget time 12 months from now. If we don't have if we don't get much more snow, if we have another season like we've had for the last several, and they're saying, "Holy cow, look what we're paying for snow removal. We've got all these graders on order to the tune of $330,000 a piece, something like that." And what for? They're sitting around. This equipment's sitting around. We have the flexibility within our contracts. We do that. The state does it. On Monday morning, the state executed, Ryan said, their emergency procurement authority. That's what they did. They did the right thing. And I'm not going to throw the governor or his staff or DOT under the bus. Looking forward, do we need more people and more equipment? It looks like we probably do. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go to Paul. The governor will go to his staff. We should be going to the union guys. Quite frankly, they'll tell you what's needed, and we'll just get there.
Well, I think they have a lot of folks we heard from the wages and this guy.
Can I clarify one thing?
Yeah.
Mr. Pop.
That was, yeah, let me come over
no
to
problem.
talk to you again.
I want to defend the state on this, being nobody is here actually.
Actually, come on camera here. I
I
think we can.
appreciate the mayor stepping up and
Come.
not throwing us under the bus. But when he was saying that, do we have the right equipment and doing 35, 40 miles an hour with high-speed blades through town, that's not correct. Those plow trucks are combination units. They have a high-speed blade in the front with a rollover blade. And that will throw it. Sorry, I talk with my hands.
Yeah, me too.
New York. And then they have a belly blade underneath, and they also have a wing blade. So it's different applications. When they're in town, they're dropping their belly blade. They're going through the intersections. They're doing that. Yep. They're throwing the berm a little bit. When they're out on the Glen Highway and the Seward Highway, that's when they're dropping their rollover blade. That's when they're using their wing blades, or they're using the blades that the
I'll hold it for you.
Toe behind, yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Grab that.
Anyway, so I just wanted to clarify that. The state does have the proper equipment, depending on the applications we use it in. And I'm not going to speak because this is Phil Petrie's opinion as a state worker and not official state of Alaska, because I know I'm probably violating some policies here, and I'm probably
It's a landmine, so
I'm
it's
going to
gonna
hear
find out.
about it.
No one's gonna find out.
No one's watching.
But anyway, so could we use more equipment on both sides? And I think we probably could. I mean, look, the mayor's got 29 graders. I think over at SEF, I'm not sure exactly the total numbers we have there. I know we don't have that many.
I was told over on 2 to 8, and only 5 or 6
Yeah,
are working
I mean,
because of a mechanical.
At the airport, we have 10 graders. So
yeah, that seems like 8's too few. If you have 10 at the airport.
But there again, it's different ways of doing things. It's no one is better than the other or doing worse than the other. So I just wanted to clarify that when he said, the state, what kind of plan is that? That's it's a good plan. We
Okay.
have the proper equipment, and the operators know when they need to use
Right.
what blade
There's the
at what time. Because other words, you use that rollover blade, you'll end up throwing it through their front windows going through town.
Yeah.
So
You don't want that.
No.
Thanks,
So,
Phil.
and let me add something too. In
Like that guy.
2012, Bill was right. We had 132 inches of snow, but it fell from November to March. We got 30 to 40 inches in 3 days. So, I don't know why he's perplexed. It's just physics. Too much snow, too wet, all at once. And I'm just telling you, our workers are out there doing a really good job. They're going to get this done. Hopefully everyone I appreciate this forum, but hopefully everyone just calms down, and then we'll sit down with the state, with us, with the school district, and we'll come to an agreement on what we need to be paying people and what kind of capital expenditures we need for equipment.
Well, I'll be honest, the reason we're doing the forum, I've heard from, I live here too, and I've experienced it, but I've just heard from so many, it's like nothing. I've been doing this 6 years, and maybe the Campbell Lake one was similar, where we did an article, that was a big thing, heard from a lot of people.
Oh,
but
the access.
I haven't heard
Campbell
from,
Lake
I
access,
just haven't
yeah.
heard from this many people, the amount of messages and emails, and it was like.
Well, it's really bad and it really
inundated.
sucks. Everyone acknowledges that. But
So
at
what I
the
was
end of the
hoping
day,
to
it
do was
really
have a forum
sucks
to
when
discuss-
you're taxed out of your house. If there was a no shortage of money, this would be an easy fix. I'm just telling you, we could have people sitting around all summer long plowing snow if there's any in the winter. But I'm responsible to 290,000 people when it comes time to pay property taxes, and I'm trying to fine-tune that as close as I can. Yes, this is serious. I'm getting beat up by friends, enemies, liberals and conservatives. Actually, I'm getting beat up more by conservatives on this. But at the end of the day, I'm going to make the same decision I made, the decisions I made last week. If the state needs help, I'm going to help them if in the same circumstances. I'm not apologizing for it, but I'm very sympathetic that people can't get to work, can't get their kids to school. We want to just get back to normal. This really does suck.
Well,
But,
I wish you've been I'd say pretty good about. You were on Channel 2. You were on the radio.
Yeah.
You're coming to this. I really been frustrated. I haven't heard from the governor. I don't think he's in town. I like Ryan Anderson a lot at DOT, but I've reached out to these folks and I've tried to talk to them. They did let me tour their facility, and
Right.
these guys talked to me and they gave me a lot of information.
Ryan
but
is really busy. I talk to him pretty often, and I'm just telling you, there's nobody sitting around doing nothing here. Not at the supervisor, not at the commissioner level, certainly not at our level. and then obviously, I think we're on
I think we're on day 9 of 12 on, 12 off.
I'm going to go to Daniel here real quick, and we're going to finish up pretty soon. Or we got
No, I
folks
just
have to be other
I
places.
think my last comment is that I do appreciate the forum and the opportunity.
It's what we do
today to hear from the public. You know, and I will just say, as a policymaker, I do want to be listening. I think this is a very timely discussion, not only because of the snow and the situation that we're in right now, but because we are in budget season. And the Assembly wants to hear from the community, you know, what level of response do you want? What level of funding do you want? You know, what type of increase? And we do have to weigh those considerations of property tax and level of service. But I think the last thing that I want to do is have this sort of like, don't believe the evidence of your eyes and ears moment, you know. I think we can do better, and I want to apologize to the public for the current situation, because, you know, I think that we are seeing a demand for a more efficient response. And with that more efficient response does have to come competitive compensation for the men and women who are doing the work that they're doing. So I guess that would be my closing comment, and I will just say, please email me, daniel.voland@anchorageak.gov. And as the Assembly prepares our amendments to the budget.
Can I give him your cell phone too? I can put it on the
Don't give him my cell phone.
Big screen.
Enough people have that. No, yeah, you know, maybe you could find that on Tinder or something. I don't know.
Show's getting.
But email me.
Email
email the Assembly. We want to hear from you, and we want a better level of snow response.
I'm going to go to Felix, last word, and then we're going to finish up. And again, I want to thank all the folks for coming in person and the people on Zoom and everybody's watching. We have a lot of folks here on Facebook and YouTube and I guess X, it's called now, watching. So again, I want to thank all the folks for coming in person and watching. And we're going to I'll let Felix go, and then I'll give you the last word, Mayor.
Okay, fine. So we are a winter city, all right? We need to be prepared for the above average storm. This idea that everything is fine, I'm just gonna do the same thing over again is not adequate. Our operators need a raise, 100%. We need to take a hard look at our system. Let me tell you, my constituents are pissed. And I think probably Daniel would agree with his constituents, and I'm sure the mayor agrees with all of his constituents. They have no trust in leadership to get the job done. That's from the mayor's side, from the Assembly side. People are pissed right now. So, you know, you heard it here. The mayor said he is going to do the same thing again. Well, you know what my response to that is? We have an opportunity in April to do something different. And I think that's what we need to do.
I'm going to give you the last word on that, Mayor.
Good campaign speech.
And this isn't, I want to be clear, this isn't a political forum or debate. This is about the problem.
Felix.
But I want to give the mayor the last word here. We are going to have debates.
So when we get back to the facts, I said in the same circumstance I would do the same thing, in that is in helping the state clear some of our roads, some of their roads. I'm not going to throw the state under the bus because it's not the right thing to do. Yes, do we need wages? It's quite apparent that we do here. I began that process months ago. It isn't a matter of necessarily snapping your finger and wages go up. We are looking at a midterm. We've got 25 months left on AMEA because some of this touches them. A midterm reopener with them. And I do have some authority, executive authority, to raise wages, but not with the union people. I can't do that. And I don't touch 71 in this regard, really. So that's kind of another issue. So I see the signs. I think I've carried the same signs on a picket line as I remember years ago. So I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, should we do better? Well, of course we do. I'm very unhappy with how this is turning out. But at the end, we have a plan, and it's quite clear. It's an 84-hour plow out once we start the neighborhoods. That's the plan. Every time it snows 4 inches, you can be almost into the neighborhoods. You can be almost done with the neighborhoods. You get 4 more inches, and you have to start over. You have to. That's That's what we go by. So people get frustrated. It's piling up in my subdivision, and the plows just packed up and left. They packed up and left because they went somewhere, and that was back to the arterials and the collectors. That's our job. And we don't want to change that. Somebody says, why don't you plow the neighborhoods first so we don't have this problem? Great, you get out of your neighborhood, and where are you going to go? Because the collectors and the arterials are as bad as your neighborhood. It's a limited resource. It's almost an infinite problem, and you're trying to match those things up. I think Felix right. I think we're going to have to grow this system a bit. But at the end of the day, I think we need to do better on our contracting. I don't think necessarily the contract operators are as good because they don't know the routes. And I'm just telling you, the two gals, they go out as a supervisor and they have two greater teams. One that does my subdivision is a couple of women that I know, and they do a really good job. And guess what? At the end of the day, my neighbor's yard that's on a curved part of the road of our cul-de-sac, her lawn doesn't get peeled up because they ran the blade 10 feet up into her yard. There's a reason for that, is because these ladies know precisely where the curb is. This isn't out plowing runways where it's a great big high-speed plow thing, but you've got a plow that's, 30, 35 feet wide. This is a different thing. This is very precision, very precise plowing, and we're going to have to pay more, it looks like, to get the talent that we need. But you don't grow a grader driver. They just don't pop up. They're trained. I would love to steal from Fairbanks or something, or maybe somewhere else and get experienced. And if we're going to steal from them, I guess we do that with paying benefits.
Got to start a campaign for Steal Fairbanks. I like that. Well, I want to thank our team, Scott, Carol, and Trent, and Peter. I really want to thank Mayor Bronson for coming in. I know you're busy talking to us about this. I mean, it's something that a lot of people are obviously really concerned about. Felix Rivera and Daniel Volan from the Anchorage Assembly. Forrest Dunbar was here earlier, Senator Dunbar. We did invite the DOT folks and the airport folks, so maybe next time we do this, we can have them come on. But I've been here 20 years. Like I said, I've been doing this for 6 years with a landminer. I've never, maybe with the exception of Camel Lake, we heard from this many people, just a barrage. And we know the airport raised wages to 30%, and that's had an impact. We know it snowed a lot, and we know we're only in November, so we still have 5 months of this left, and who knows what we're going to experience here in the next 5 months. But if it happens again, I think if I'm encouraging people to watch the assembly, watch the budget meetings, watch the legislature. There's these things called subcommittees. They're pretty boring. They're finance subcommittees, but I have a feeling that the transportation finance subcommittees in the House and the Senate are going to be very exciting here this legislative session, which starts in January. So I encourage people to watch that, and also the finance committees and maybe the DOT committees in the House and the Senate. I've already heard from folks they're going to be having some hearings, but this is an issue that's affecting all of us, with jobs, businesses, schools, all of these things. So we all live here, and we all need to participate and do our part to make sure there's a solution. Again, I want to thank Mayor Bronson for coming in, Daniel Volan, Felix Rivera from the Assembly, and earlier Senator Dunbar. Thank our team and all the folks who came in person here to the forum, to the town hall. I really appreciate that. And the folks on Zoom, we tried to get to everybody. We were having a pretty good discussion. I didn't think it was going to get this good, but it was really enjoyable, and we had a good back and forth. It was like an assembly meeting, but a little more fun and a little more intimate. So we'll try to do that again. So again, thank everybody for coming in to the event. The mayor, Felix, Dan, Forrest Dunbar earlier, and we'll see you guys next time. And thanks to the team for doing the show. Appreciate it.